Hi there, I'm Mindy Jensen,
And I'm Carl Jensen.
and this is the Mindy
And Carl.
on Money podcast, where we talk about what happens after you reach financial independence.
So, what do we call this show? Mindy and Money?
Because your best friend, Mindy Jensen, sits and talks to you for an hour is kind of a stupid name for a podcast.
Yeah, that is kind of stupid.
Even though that's what it happens, we're not going to call it that. We're just
I,
going to call it Mindy on Money.
I talk too.
Yeah, that's why it's Mindy
And Carl.
on Money instead of just Mindy on Money. All right, on this episode of the Mindy
And Carl.
on Money podcast, Carl and I talk about that teeny tiny stock market downturn that happened on Monday.
But before we get started, let's take a quick break. Today's episode is sponsored by Camp Fi. If you are looking for an in person Fi event, Camp Fi is for you.
Camp Fi is a traveling Fi event, meaning there's most likely one near you. Imagine a long weekend filled with money nerds just like you. Get answers to questions, share your expertise, or simply make new friends who you will have so much more in common with than just this little financial independence thing.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention before we go on, I'm talking off outline here, is all of these things that we promote in our intro, we are not getting paid for this. We have not received a cent from anyone. We talk about these because these are experiences that we really enjoy and support and attend ourselves. We pay to go to these things. They are not paying us for anything. Stephen Boyer, the Camp Fi guy, is a super cool person, and I've always had an awesome time at these events.
Yes, same. I would go to every single one if it didn't, interfere with my whole rest of my life. But we definitely make time for at least one every single year.
Yes, I think we're kind of addicts. We've probably been to, I was thinking about Camp Fi's. I've been to at least 10.
Really? I haven't been to that many, but I've been to, let's see, I did Florida twice, and I don't even know how many times I've been to Rocky Mountain. But you've been to a lot more. You've been to the one in California, you've been to the Midwest one, and I have not yet.
Okay, well, let's talk about what happened today. And we are recording on Monday. What is going on?
I'm not sure if you noticed, Carl, but the stock market took a teeny bit of a dip today.
And it has been taking a dip for a while. And that's what the subject of today's episode is going to be about. Before we get into it, there are some terms that you all need to know. The first one is a correction, which I think is what we're in right now. We should have looked at the news before, but a correction is a 10% pullback from all time highs. And there have been about seven or possibly eight, if we're in one right now, since and including 2015. So that translates to about one every year, a 10% pullback. The second term is a bear market, which is a 20% pullback. There have been, geez, I got to put my reading glasses on. I can't read
There have been
anything.
3 of these since and including 2015.
Three, I thought it was a three or eight. It would have made sense to be eight since there was less corrections. But like, I should just wear my stupid reading glasses all the time. Getting old sucks.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative.
Yeah. So some people have been freaking out, including a friend who I emailed back and forth who should not freak out, but he sent me an email saying he is freaking out today, even though he has no reason to. So I'd like to address that a little bit first before we talk about some other things. Yeah, market crashes are part of the game. This is the price you pay for that growth. If you want stability, you should just invest in a money market or a CD or a bank account, which will pay you a steady 5%. But the reason we do the stock market is because over the long term, we expect it to return more than that, even if the climb isn't going to be this perfectly linear line. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But if you wait long enough, those things turn into little blips and it becomes more linear. And if you think about some of these crashes in the past, like what was the last big one we had? I think it was March of 2020. Anyone remember what was going on with the world at that time?
I would like to point out that the year before, around September or October, I successfully predicted the March 2020 crash to the day, except I didn't take into account leap year. So I was actually one day off. Just want to throw that out there as my crystal ball moment. And do you know how I successfully predicted it? I guessed, because that's how anybody can successfully predict a stock market crash. They're just going to guess because there's no predicting it. To answer your question, Carl, nothing was going on in March of 2020.
Wait, hold on. Back up a second. You're saying you predicted The COVID crash. You didn't predict COVID, but you predicted the crash. Is there recorded documentation about this?
Yes, it was on episode 71 of the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. I said, "Oh, the stock market's gonna crash March 13th, 2020," or maybe I said March 14th, and it actually turned out to crash a day after that.
Okay, so Nostradamus, or should I call you Mindydamus?
Yes,
Mindydamus, when is the next crash? Look into your crystal ball or however you predict your crashes and tell us, tell the audience.
August 5, 2024.
Wait, that's like today, right?
That is today. So here's the thing. When I was predicting that, and you need to be watching this on YouTube to see my little air quotes around the word predicting. When I was predicting that, I was guessing. I was having a conversation with Jay Scott, who is a very smart individual, mainly known for his real estate investing techniques and tips and tricks. If you are affiliated or not affiliated, if you are familiar with Bigger Pockets, you've definitely heard Jay Scott's name before, but he's not just real estate. He is smart about everything. And we were having a conversation then about how to prepare for the next market downturn. It wasn't any particular specific time frame that he was talking about. So I just was joking and said, "Oh, it's gonna be March 13th or March 15th."
Okay. So when is the next one, not including today or tomorrow or this week?
Whew, March 14th, 2025. I don't even know if that's a weekday.
Okay, tune in March 14th, 2025, if that is a weekday, to see if the market crashes, if Mindy has a true wait, is this one of those deals like Who's the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy where he predicts a recession like every month?
He has successfully predicted 22 of the last 2 stock market downturns. I saw that somewhere on Twitter, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, if I predicted one every single month, eventually I'd be right. And I think that's a really interesting point. You can predict this, and eventually you're gonna be right. A broken clock is still right twice a day. So, Carl, are you investing based on stock market crashes?
No.
What are you investing based off?
What am I investing based off of? Well, my timeline is decades. I don't really care about what happens today, tomorrow, next week, or even 10 years. Like I care about where my money is going to be in 20 years. And I could say with a fair degree of confidence that our money is going to be more than it is right now if we just stay in it for the long term like that.
I would venture a guess, Mindydamus, you can take this to the bank. I would you can't take this to the bank. Past performance is not indicative of future gains, blah, blah, blah. But I would venture a guess that August 5th, 2044, you and I have significantly more money than we do right now. It will mostly be in the stock market with some in real estate. And I just see it going up and to the right, as it has done since the beginning of time, with notable exceptions. The 1929 stock market crash, the 1987 stock market crash, the 2001 stock market crash, the 2008 stock market crash. But Carl, what happened in the weeks and months and years following each one of those stock market crashes?
It went back up.
It went back up and then more so.
Yes.
It may not have gone up the next day, and in many cases, it did not go up the next day, not even in weeks, but months and years later, it went up. So if you are investing for tomorrow, we should have a different conversation. But for those of you who are investing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, this is gonna be a blip.
Yep.
I don't even know where we are in regards to this, oh, I know. While you find your place in the outline, I'm gonna ask you about your friend that emailed you that was not reacting well to this particular news of the day. Is this person would you could categorize this person as well-versed in money and the stock market?
Extremely well versed. It was his job.
Oh, okay. Well then, I'm wondering why he's so upset. Could it be because no matter what news website you go to, it is splashed all over, in many cases in red letters, "The stock market is crashing, the stock market is crashing." We shouldn't be getting our news from
Yeah,
chickenlittle.com.
I really can't say. I'd like to sit down and have an in-person conversation with him, which I never have. I saw him once at one of our events and said hi, and I meant to talk to him. but then that never happened. But I believe he's a very smart person, and the guy is set financially. He did very well for himself. He has since left his job. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if these are just offhanded emails he sends me or if he really is worried. I tend to believe it's maybe the that he isn't really worried, that it might just be some kind of knee-jerk reaction to the downturn. The other thing with him is this person is recently retired, so I could see people watching things and being a little bit more worried at that state of time. You just stopped working, you don't have this nice income coming in anymore, so now you're completely relying off your investments, which, by the way, this person is actually doing, so big props to him, because how many people do we know in the FI community who live off their investments? Like, we all have some kind of side hustles, or I don't know, I pay my retired friends to help me build fences and they pay me for other things. Uh, no one, no one lives off the 4% rule. And my friend doesn't either, but he is pure in the fact that he is living off his investments. And as far as I know, he doesn't have any kind of side hustle like the other 99.9% of us who claim to be early retirees.
Well, I think that brings us to an interesting point. What should somebody do when they are in this position? I mean, if you're looking at the news, you can't get away from this story today. What should somebody be doing if they're in this position and freaking out?
Ooh, that is a good point. The number one thing I would recommend to anyone is just to not pay any attention to the news in the first place. And that's not just for financial stuff, it is for everything, because the news isn't really the news. It's this media that tries to get you to click on things so they can get paid. So the interest of the news isn't to actually inform you, it's to scare you because then you'll pay more attention to it.
Ooh,
And
check.
yeah, that's a lot of what's wrong with with this country now. Okay, so back to your original question, what would you do? And I'd say it depends on where you are. If you're in the accumulation phase, this is great. You should be jumping up and down. Do you go to the store and look to pay more for something? No, of course not. Warren Buffett has this quote that I love. He said, the stock market is the only store where people run for the exits when it goes on sale, which is completely true. If Apple stock is 20% less than it was yesterday, but the underlying business is fine, why would you want to sell it? You should see the opportunity in that instead of the opposite. You shouldn't freak out. The price of anything is just one reflection on its actual value, right? Like today, we might actually be in correction territory down, and that again, that means down 10%. But is the quality of these businesses any different? I don't think so. Nothing has changed as far as that. There might be some macro things happening. We could be going into a recession, which changes things a little bit, but the underlying quality of the business is the same. And you should never buy a stock. You should buy the business, right?
Well, you buy the business by buying the stock.
Yeah, that's true. But the information you should be paying attention to isn't the price of the stock or its fluctuations. It should be the quality of the business. If they're innovating, if they're growing sales, whatever metrics you want to look at, that's a whole other conversation way beyond today. And I don't think you should even buy stocks. It should be index funds.
That's
Okay.
you know what? That's a really great point, although the entire index is down, and in fact, global markets are down. So this particular, downturn today is hitting everything, but I can't wait for tomorrow. I mean, how many dips have we seen where it's down, you know, an amount, and then the next day it's back up that amount or more?
Exactly. COVID was a great example of that. I think the markets were down 30%, but then it was a very narrow V. They quickly recovered and were back to where they were. And then it was back to all time highs. So if you sold in the middle of COVID, you might not have done well for yourself.
I wanna say it was 3 or 6 months. Maybe we should have done some research before we just start talking. But come on, this is like recent history, you can look it up yourself. Feel
Yeah.
free to email me at I don't care at tellsomebodyelse.com.
Okay. And this next situation actually covers us because you are still earning money, enough for us to live on, but not really much more than that. So we're not actively putting money in, but we are living off your income. So we're not touching our investments either for the most part. And for us, when there's a correction or downturn too, because we do have the income, it doesn't really matter to us either. So you shouldn't freak out if you are in this position.
Okay, so we've covered 2 scenarios if you are still in the accumulation phase or if you're in the "I'm good and I'm not drawing down yet" phase. What should somebody do if they are actively drawing down? Like, what if you have an investment plan that says on August 5th of every year, you withdraw your funds?
Ooh, you said a key word there, two actual keywords, and they were investment plan. So my answer to your question was going to be you should follow your investment plan, whatever that is. And if you don't have one, you should create one. But that's an interesting thought. So your investment plan should account for stuff like this. And if your plan is to withdraw the money on this date, I guess then that's what you're going to do because I would have hoped you would have thought through this and that would have been part of your plan. The investment plan is a whole different topic. Like everyone should have a withdrawal plan. And the time to create that plan isn't at a time like this when the markets are getting knocked around. The time to do that is when the skies are blue and everything is great and when your mind is clear. It's kind of like a house with insurance. You wouldn't buy home insurance when the hurricane or tornado is on the horizon. You do it when everything is great, so your mind is clear and you're in the best state of mind possible to do it. Yeah, if you don't have an investment plan, that is problem number one.
That is problem number 1, and I'm going to reference a couple of episodes of the Bigger Pockets Money podcast now. The first episode is episode 55 and 55 and a half with Bryce and Christy from Millennial Revolution. They retired into a very down market. Like, they retired, and I think the next day or the next week, their market crashed. They're Canadian, so it's a bit of a different situation than an American situation. However, they still retired into a crash, and they said, "We're not concerned because we have a cash cushion. We have 3 years of spending in cash in an account, so that should something like this happen, we are not on August 5th withdrawing money as the stock market is crashing. We're simply shifting over to our cash cushion for a while. And then when the stock market goes back up, and they do say when, not if, then they will simply replenish their cash cushion at that time." I love that idea, and I love that they're thinking ahead. You should not be reacting to what's going on right now with no plan. "Oh my goodness, the sky is falling." You should have a plan in place, which leads me to my second episode, which is episode 119. It came out on August 6th of 2020, and we specifically interviewed 5 different people, Andy Hill from Marriage, Kids, and Money, Amy and Tim from Go With Less, Christy and Bryce, the Mad Fientist, and Doug Nordman from the Military Dollar?
Military guide.
Military Guide. Sorry, Doug. Um, and the Mad Fientist had something very interesting to say about this. He said, "I have an investment plan, but I didn't act on it because it was not automated. I was, every time the market is down a little bit, I buy more." Well, I hit 2 milestones to buy in the same day. And he missed the second milestone because it dipped low enough that he could have purchased, but then popped back up during the same day. So he said, "I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my plan that I made when I was clearly thinking. I was reacting in the moment and I missed that buying opportunity." So once this is all over, I'm going to automate my investment plan so I don't have to miss another dip, which is a buying opportunity. So I think it's really interesting to note that the Mad Fientist, who is very well respected in this community, still had a bit of hesitation. Your hesitation's normal. It's super easy for Carl and I to be here like, "Oh, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it." We understand that you're going to worry about it, A, because it's this national news story, global news story, but also take a deep breath. Review your investment plan. If you don't have an investment plan, start thinking about an investment plan so that when this happens again, and not if, when this happens again, you might be a little more calm because you have a plan in place that you made when you weren't in the middle of this panicky situation.
Interesting. A couple other points before we wrap up. I've never met anyone in my life who can't cut something from their budget. So be flexible. Just because your plan says you have to take a withdrawal today doesn't mean you have to. And just because you told the kids you're going to take them to Disney World doesn't mean you have to. If you're really worried, tell the kids you're going to have a camp out in the backyard instead of going to Disney. They might not be happy about it, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
And then give your kids Carl's email so they can tell him what terrible advice that is. But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It isn't terrible advice. If you have some giant expenditure coming up, and that's why you're pulling money out on August 5th, simply postpone that giant expenditure or, you know, rethink ways to reduce the expenses. It's not gonna be this advice is not applicable for every situation, but in the case of Disney World's still gonna be there in 3 months if the market corrects by then, or in 6 months, or 10 years, or whatever. I think that you can alter your spending so that your need for cash right now isn't so great.
If you went to Disney World, would you call yourself Mindy Mouse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I can picture you with those mouse ears. Do you still have those? I think you had some from some childhood trip or
I did. I don't know that I still have those, but the girls have mouse ears.
okay, maybe you could wear them for our next recording.
I'm probably not gonna do that.
I think that'd be awesome.
I'm probably not gonna do that.
So back to the events of this morning. I just have to paint this picture. I have to tell the whole story. It's a little bit, it's not inappropriate, but it's a little bit silly. So this morning, I was doing my morning business. Is it clear what that means?
Really?
Yes.
This
So
is not Mile Hi-Fi.
I was in the bathroom and I was bored. So I picked up the tablet and checked the stock futures.
Can't you
And
just say I was reading news on the internet? Does it have to be because you were doing other things?
no, no, I got to paint the picture.
Nobody
So
wants to see this picture.
looked at the stock futures and they stunk.
Really?
Everything was down 10%. And then for the heck of it, I checked it again before we recorded and everything was down like 3%, which is still a lot, but nothing compared to that this morning when I saw that one point of information, like everything is all better already or a lot better than it was relatively.
I think that's a really great bit of information. What is
The
that like?
bathroom part?
No. The story about how 7 hours ago it was down 10%, futures were down 10%, and now 7 hours later, futures are only down 3
Yeah, stocks are down 10%,
or stocks are down, whatever,
not futures.
whatever, don't listen to me.
Yeah, I think this is what dooms a lot of people with their investing. You have to have that long-term mindset. You can't just look at these little points of information and act on them. And I think Warren Buffett always says that the most important quality that an investor needs is a good temperament. And that's not how humans are wired. We think moment to moment survival instincts, right? We don't think decades out, which is how we should with investments.
You know, Carl, we're recording this in the afternoon of August 5th, and the markets have closed, and the CNN headline says Dow and S&P 500 finish worst day since 2022. Worst day in 2 years? Why are we so freaked out about the worst day in 2 years?
Yeah, that's hilarious. Munger used to talk about this. The late great Charlie Munger used to say, if you can't tolerate a couple 30% downturns in your life, you probably shouldn't be in the markets because what's going on now is nothing compared to what will happen in the next couple of decades. No one knows what black swan is going to bring that downturn, but it's going to happen and you have to brace yourself for it. And if it's going to freak you out, have some plan like Christine Bryce's cash cushion or some other way that's going to get you through it where where you don't have to lose sleep at night.
And I think it would be really interesting to pop back into this recording studio tomorrow with a little bit of an update before we release on Wednesday.
Yes, we'll see where the markets go. Maybe they'll be back up to new all-time highs.
And maybe they will be even worse, but we will come back tomorrow afternoon and give another bit of an update and then release on Wednesday. We would love to hear from you. Please email Mindy at mindyonmoney.com or Carl at mindyonmoney.com. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/MindyOnMoney. We want to hear from you and how you are handling this downturn on August 5th.
I just had a thought. We have our bull. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me holding up my treasure that I bought at the famous bull statue on Wall Street. We should get the bull an email, bull@mindyonmoney.com.
Oh, you can email the bull at mindyonmoney.com.
I don't know how it's going to respond. Maybe just like what noises do bulls make?
They don't make that noise. Have you never been to a farm?
You know, make a bull noise.
We're not making a bull noise.
I don't think you know. I think I know. I'm the one with the toy tractor and the toy bull.
What was that sound again?
I'm not going to do it again. You're just going to humiliate me.
You did that all by yourself, sweetie.
I'm going to cry after this is done.
Everybody listening to that sound just cried.
I'm very sensitive.
All right. So thank you so much for listening to us this week. We'll be back next week to talk about tips for leaving your employer. All right. It is Tuesday afternoon. The markets have closed and it is August 6th. 3, 2, 1. All right. It is Tuesday, August 6th, the afternoon. The markets have closed. Carl, what happened today?
Well, first, I think we should recap yesterday. Very quickly, I checked the futures yesterday morning. Astute viewers may remember where I checked them. I don't want to repeat that.
Thank you.
Cue Mindy's eye roll. Futures were down 10%, and markets ended up closing down about 3%. So that's kind of a bad day. But today, they're back up 1%. So all that chaos and people going crazy yesterday was kind of all for nothing, right?
What do you mean by they were back up 3% or back up 1% today?
Well, the S&P closed up 1% from where it opened this morning.
Which is where it closed yesterday.
Yeah, it closed down 3% yesterday, and now it's back up 1%. So it's not back up to where it was yesterday, but it was a solid up day.
So in your extensive history of following the stock market and the ups and downs, would a normally 2% down day be a frantic, oh my goodness, the sky is falling event? Or would it be like, oh shucks, the market was down a little bit today?
I guess it depends on who you're talking to. If you're paying attention to the media, they're going to try to scare you and get you all agitated because they want you to pay attention to them. But if you're a person or if you're acting how you should, not paying attention, you might not even know that this happened.
I just want to put this into perspective a little bit. They were predicting this giant drop yesterday. And back in 1987, the stock market dropped 500 points in one day. And at that time, that was one of the biggest drops ever. It was 22.6% down in one day. Yesterday's drop at one point was 1,000 points. So technically twice as many points as the October 1987 drop, but it was only 7% of the value of the index. Is that right? It was down 7% at one point.
I think so.
Yeah. So you can get this the sky is falling information depending on how you manipulate the information you're sharing. So pay attention to the amount of the drop and the percentage of the drop, but also maybe just don't even pay attention at all unless you're in the active withdrawal situation that some people are finding themselves in right now.
Yeah, you said it all right there. The right amount of attention is pretty much no attention whatsoever. It just doesn't matter long term.
So what I'm hearing you say, Carl, is that one of us obsessively checks the stock market, which would be you, and one of us almost never checks the stock market, which would be me. So one of us is right and one of us is you.
Wow, so you're saying once again that you're better than me.
I didn't say those specific words.
I'm not sure this podcast is going to last another episode. I don't know if we're going to make it through this episode.
We will, and it will.
We'll see. Have I told you I reserved carloncash.com?
Go right ahead.
I've got an awesome co-host lined up.
Yahoo.
It's secret. I can't tell you.
Oh, yeah. I bet you don't really have an awesome co-host lined up.
No, no, it's going to be. You're going to be surprised.
I would be shocked.
The bull is going to be the first co-host. Where is the bull? Is it
I
around?
don't
Oh, here
know.
it is.
I'm not the boss of the bull.
For those watching on YouTube, that is my little bull statuette. That I know this bull has a lot of wisdom. The bull is very optimistic.
Yeah, okay. So nobody's listening now. We should go.
No bull. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Oh, you know what? Before we let everybody go, we would like to hear from you. Please reach out in the Mindy on Money website. Before we let everybody go, we would like to hear from you. Please reach out. You can chat with us in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Mindy on Money, or you can email Mindy at mindyonmoney.com or Carl at mindyonmoney.com and have conversations with us that way. But we would love to hear how you handled the horrible news of the stock market going down on Monday and the subsequent whatever that it ended up at and Tuesday's little bump back up.
And you can also email the bull@mindyonmoney.com.
Yes, now we have an email site for the bull. All right, thanks for listening. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hi there, I'm Mindy Jensen,
And I'm Carl Jensen.
and this is the Mindy
And Carl.
on Money podcast, where we talk about what happens after you reach flubbited again. It's what a bull sounds like. Tell me you've never been to a farm without saying you've never been to a farm.